And it is live. Welcome,
We're
beautiful
live.
people, to another Friday night TMAU PATM interview. In this interview, I have a woman named Letitia. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I do want to ask you, how old are you?
I'm 46.
And where are you located?
I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Now, I have to ask you, when did this all started for you? What is your earliest memory of people making comments about you having bad breath or body odor? What type of condition do you have exactly?
I believe mine's to be TMAU relatively. My odor usually resonates from my groin area and later years, my breath. Um, I'm 46 now. I started exhibiting symptoms probably after the birth of my first child when I was around, 19 years old, before around 1920. So late teens, early 20s.
Hmm.
Trying to join the call. You know what? Because I'm going from my phone and the laptop. So whichever one goes, we're gonna work it out. But keep going, hey, keep going.
Okay, so you started exhibiting symptoms right when you had your first child. Um, how
Well,
many people
after about
after
6 months since
you?
the birth of my first child.
And when you started getting these symptoms, were you able to, did you just see reactions or did you pick up the odor yourself?
Oh my gosh. I didn't. Well, kind of, sorta. The way, thinking back in hindsight, the way that it kind of set in with me, it almost came in the form of with one of my cycles. It was like I had a cycle, and this was one where it seemed to be, it wasn't unusual for me to be a heavy bleeder during that time of the month. Sorry to be graphic for some of the males, because I know sometimes when we talk about the female end of things, that can be a little bit much for you guys, but I'll try to keep it as tailored as I can. But
Keep it informative.
heavy during that time of the month. But this time it seemed like there was just a profound odor. And I'm just thinking at this time, where maybe I just need to shower, but that just seemed to be the beginning of the end.
Hmm.
It's like it ushered its way in with the cycle. And from that point, it was just a downward circle, it seemed. Let me also say that I believe the onset with the TMAU with me may have been during my pregnancies with both of my children. My pregnancies were very hard. My first trimesters, especially, I was I went through my morning sickness to a degree where I threw up the whole 9 months with both of my pregnancies. And my first trimesters, it was so severe that I had to be hospitalized.
Wow.
So I believe that that breakdown of my system during those times may have played a big role in maybe how this condition came to sort with me, because I don't have a family history of anybody having any type of condition like this. It just kind of hit me out of nowhere. So
You know,
yeah.
I find it interesting that the odor came after you had a pregnancy because sometimes I read posts on forums and I've heard a
Uh-huh.
couple of people mention that after their pregnancy they started exhibiting bad breath or body odor.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you're not the first person or the first time I've heard this. So
Yeah.
like, do you feel like it was because of some type of hormone changes in your body or maybe
Maybe,
some medication?
maybe during that time, my body just went through such a severe breakdown. So maybe somewhere in there, or it's just some way where this was able to, come from that. But I do believe that that may have played a role with me developing this condition. So, just one of
Hmm.
those mysteries.
So I do want to ask you this. So like, can you like go into detail in your first month when you started experiencing or you started realizing, oh, I'm giving off this strong odor or people are reacting to me? And I know you were talking about when you have your period, that's when you start noticing it. Is that always the case when you have your cycles or your period? Like it gets more intense or something like that? Because I also hear that for women, like when they go through their period, that's when it gets even more unbearable to the point that they, no matter what they do, it's still going to, the odor's still going to be offensive.
Yes. Um, like I said, during that time, it just ushered, when it kind of ushered its way in, that was beginning of the journey with dealing with the condition. It would just, it was the comments, the constant comments, and this woman smells like fish, and you're hearing all these different comments coming left and right. I'm not understanding what's going on. So my initial, reaction is to go and, I'm bathing, and I the doctor appointments is just countless. And I remember even getting to a point where because it wasn't uncommon, to douche. At one point I was probably dishing away myself maybe almost 10, 12 times a day. It got so
Mm,
excessive with the bathing and washing, everything that you can think to do to try to relieve yourself from having an odor. But
right.
yeah, it was very apparent, you know. And the thing is, I couldn't detect it a lot of the times. There probably were times in between where I could. In my later years, especially once in my 30s, as I started to go through, because as women, we go through different cycle changes of life through our 20s, our 30s, and our 40s. I found as the years started to progress, as I started to change as far as hormones and age, so did the variations of the odor. And for me, it began to worsen.
Mm,
It got to the point where my cycle became like a cloud where I couldn't smell myself a lot of the other times. But then when the cycle came, I could smell myself.
mm.
And just this very overbearing, pungent odor that just seemed like it surrounded me.
I
You
wanted to ask,
figure the average has a cycle, but with us, the females dealing with TMAU, it's like we have those symptoms, our monthly cycles, but they're magnified 20 or even 30 times over
mm,
as far as the smell, can go. Yes,
I,
mine's is very pungent and intense.
I wanted to ask you, since you were like 19 when you first had your child, what were you doing at
Mhm.
the time? Were you in school? Were you at a job? Were
I
you
was
in
in school.
college?
I was in school. I was in school. I ended up dropping out uh, after going through everything with all of that setting in. But at that time, yeah, I was in school.
Okay, and what were you trying to pursue?
At that time, I was just trying to pursue going to finish high school. Truth be
Oh,
told, let it be known, I never graduated. I don't even have a GED. I
really?
manage. I don't. I don't recommend that for the future. Stay in school, kids. Stay in school. Stay smart. I was able to make it through the cracks, but no, no, I didn't. I didn't graduate, or I didn't have. I don't have a GED. But
Oh,
I don't recommend that for anybody else. Go to school, get your paper, get that piece
because
of
I know
paper.
the little conversations we had, I know you said that you were a nursing assistant and you
I
don't
am.
need a GED for that.
There are ways to get around.
Hmm. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, okay. So, okay. So with all the comments that you got, you trying to finish high school, you drop out because, and I guess you were, I'm assuming you were depressed and you're also like trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So
Oh,
like within your like 20s or chronologically, what were you doing what was your next step after that?
it's funny you asked that question. My kids look at me now because I'm in a different phase of life now, because it would take me well over 20 years, 20, 25 almost years to be able to get control over my symptoms. It's taken me that long. I'm at a different place in my life now. Thank God. I can only thank God for that. But my kids will tell me now that I'm living my best life now. And when you ask me that question, what rings through my head is through my 20s and 30s, I never had a life. It's like so much of that dealing with this condition was stripped from me, where you're out usually dating and building your career and doing things. I was struggling,
Right.
trying to manage to fight this demon of a beast of a condition that I just couldn't control. So that's where a lot of my thought process went, so relationships and all that stuff. I didn't get to enjoy a lot of the normalcies of life.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing I wanted to say is like when you were 19, what year was this? Was this in the 80s or 90s?
Gosh, I had my oldest child, Tierra, 1991. So you figure 1990, 91, start of the 90s.
So this is the internet wasn't even really out that I mean it was out, but it wasn't as robust as it is now. So there wasn't
Yeah.
really that much information about this thing. Even now, like, 20 almost 20 years later, I think it's more than 20 years later, there's still not enough information about this thing, and there's still not like enough effective treatments to this thing. So to be 19 in 1991 and this weird condition, takes a hold of you, I'm pretty sure you're completely confused, and especially within your continuing 20s, you were like, I don't know what to do at the moment. So
Yeah.
like you were saying that you were douching or whatever. Did you decide to like get into healthy living, or like what other things were you
So
trying to do?
before, you're going, you almost become like a mad scientist. You're experimenting with every different thing, every different type of supplement. You're just searching, trying to find a way. Different doctors and just different outlets, any and every outlet that you can think of that, diet.
Right.
I think of just some of the things in the past that I've gone through, trying to fight this condition. It's a miracle that I'm still here. And I say that with all honesty, because dealing with the cycle, as I said, especially once I got into my 30s and my 40s, as time, because it's been about 6 years since I had my hysterectomy. I ended up having a partial hyst. Um, before before taking the final step to have a hysterectomy, you know, I gotten so desperate at one point. I was taking 4 different birth controls at one time, anything to
Wow.
control or to keep myself from bleeding. And it was a catch 22 with that, because I'm pushing all these hormones that's making me smell more, but it was rather deal with that or deal with the actual blood flow coming from my body. Because it got to the point where I even started to have nervous breakdowns around the time of my cycle, because it just got so intense, around
Mm,
that time.
mm. So you would get
So
you would get
yeah,
extremely nervous and extreme anxiety right when you start to
absolutely,
realize. Okay.
absolutely, especially around the time of the month. Yes, absolutely.
Wow. And I did want to ask you, like, since you said you had kids, how many kids do you have currently?
I have 2 daughters. I have a 27 and a 25-year-old. I have a grandson, and I have another one on the way. So I'll be a grandmother twice over this year.
And did your kids ever detect any type of odor from you? Um,
Uh, well, we know the realms going with the family members. Dealing with the condition is something that's beyond belief with them. And they smell the odor, but even when they did, they would never tell me.
oh, you're
I'm
just saying
asking,
family
do I
members in general.
smell or do you smell anything? And you get the no, I don't smell, I don't detect or anything. But you have instances where sometimes family members be sitting having conversations with you, holding your nose like this around you the whole time, or just giving you different reactions. But when you're coming to them, asking them, if trying to talk to them about the condition, it's just I just find that it was really difficult for them to kind of grasp a hold of. So that wasn't really, I didn't find so much something that I could talk to them about at that time. I think it's a lot easier now. When I really started to come, because it was, I'd say in the late 1990s, early 2000s, that's when I came searching on the internet. I found out, that there was a condition, that this was an actual condition or whatever, what I'd been dealing with. Because before that, I'm out in the loom. I'm thinking I'm one lost wonder out here. I didn't think there was anybody else that was even suffering from a condition like this. But during that time, back in the early 1990s, they, I think it was it NORD? I found that organization at the time, the National Organization for Rare Diseases, who put
Mm-hmm.
me in contact with the TMA support group at that time. They had the New York region, who was ran by Sandy Gordon at that time. This was years ago, in the late 1990s, early 2000s. She ran a big chapter there on the East Coast end. She since stepped down away from that forum, but that was the beginning for me being able to find that there was a support group and other sufferers. I was able to go to meetups and meet people in New York, because at that time they used to have meetups there in New York on a regular basis. That support group function at that time was, really functioning at that time. But sometimes some of the support groups over the years have kind of
Wayne.
dissipated over
Yeah.
time. So
Let me ask you this: at what age did you figure this? You figured out the support group being in New York. When did you? When's the first time you went to that meetup in New York? At what
oh my gosh,
age?
that had to be 2000, 2001. So how old was I?
So
My
you had to have been
20s, late
29.
29, 30 maybe, 29, 30 maybe. You got
Hmm.
me going back down memory lane, honey. So I'm trying to recall and go back down that time. But that was my first introduction to meeting that there were other people out here suffering, going through the condition, like myself. And I credit that, and I'm thankful for that, because before that I was so lost out here. First, it's good that it's not all in your head. You ain't the only one that's out here going through this, because otherwise it can play tricks on you when you think you're out here and you don't have a recourse or anybody to be able to reach out to or connect to on that end.
Right.
That's a lot to be said within itself. But the good thing about me going to a meetup and actually being able to see other sufferers, I got to see that these people, in spite of having this condition, they were still working, living their lives, and making do as best they knew how, even with having this condition. And I credit that, because that helped me to kind of to function the way that I do now. Because I think if
Hmm.
I never had that opportunity, I probably would have been a hermit, or I don't know where I would be otherwise if it wasn't for that. So I really credit that. I credit the support groups and forums, that we have now. You can't discount them. They're lifelines.
Right.
They're
And
lifelines.
I also wanted to ask you this. So I know you said that, you're originally from Milwaukee.
I am born and
Did you
raised.
did you just stay in New York for that short period of time? And what was the main reason to stay in New York? Was
It
it
was just
mainly
a meetup.
because
It
of the
was
meetup?
just a meetup. It was just a meetup. One of their meetups that they had. But there have been meetups, different groups or forums over the years that they have all over the country, because even Maria now with the Mebo, I know they've had a meetup. So I went to the one that they had last year over in Savannah, Georgia. I didn't go the year before. They took a cruise the year prior, but I hadn't been a part of the Facebook forum at that time. But I did attend the one that they had in Georgia last year. We had a good
Oh,
time.
okay. Because I think I recall
Yeah,
hearing about that. How many people?
it was
How many
wonderful.
people are within those like meetup groups or within those meetup events? At least
Well, the
from
one that
like
we
the
had
Savannah,
last
Georgia
year,
one.
there was a nice number of us. I think that maybe there were 20, 25 of us, I think. I may be overstating the number, but I'm not sure. But kind of maybe around about close to that number. There was a nice number of us together.
Hmm. That's
That was
interesting
good. And
because
it's the first time I actually got to meet Maria. So to me, that was everything, because she does so much for
yeah,
the community. So actually just be able to meet and talk with her was just everything to me. So
Yeah, and it's so I always find it so not strange, but a little bit odd that Meebo's like the only group in America, I think the only group in America that really focuses on metabolic odor conditions. I would think there'd be like other nonprofit organizations, but maybe that's just maybe that just shows how small the pool of people who have these weird conditions. Um, but yeah, I find it so fascinating that you were talking about, your New York visits or your New York meetups, because I don't think I've ever experienced something where it happened on a regular basis where people just came in. Was it like a weekly thing or a monthly thing when you did the meetups?
at that time, back in the 1990s, I think they may have had monthly meetups. I don't know exactly how their structures were, but I was able to come up to one of them. But this is when they were having them way, way back at that time, then. But I think like now, people just kind of do it. They have the annual meetups with Meebo, but then sometimes you get other sufferers that just kind of get up and meet up on their own. So
Right.
it doesn't have to always be an official organized meetup. If you come in contact with a sufferer over in your area, I'm pretty sure you can just, I mean, I don't know if you have, if ever linked up with someone from one of the forums, but I've had the opportunity, and that's one other thing I'm grateful for. I've met a lot of wonderful folks and created wonderful bonds with quite a few folks with the
Yeah,
forums
I've
over the
actually
years.
had like only two meetups in my life, and the first one I had was when I was like 21 years old, and I met her up. I met with her at a mall, and she said that she had bad breath. So when I met her, and she wanted me to see if her breath, how offensive her breath was. And the thing was, I couldn't detect anything. All I could detect is the fact that she had like peppermint in her breath because apparently she probably brushed
Isn't
her
that
teeth.
fascinating? You can meet up because that's like the first thing we're thinking when we get together. I'm like, well, be honest. If you smell anything from me, let me know. And it is just the oddest thing. Like when we had the meetup in Savannah, I promise you, I did not smell anything from anybody.
Right.
I'm like, God, this condition can seem so wayward, sometimes. I mean, I'm smelling some of the ladies there. I smell their light cologne or their hair smells sweet. I didn't smell any. And that's honestly always been my experience with any sufferer that I've met up with. I can't say that I've met any sufferer that I've met that when we would sit, before each other, okay, let's do the smell check, see if we smell each other. We would never smell each other, which
Hmm.
is the oddest thing, and I'm also thankful because, we have that comfort level, just think with each other, well, we can say that. Just think of that, we're dealing with this condition that everybody else, who does, a normal person that wouldn't experience anything would be looking like it's all in our head. But you have this person that that first of all, I can relate. I understand exactly what you're going through. And we can stand and be each other's midst and do a sniff check and not feel like we're just crazy or out of our head, and
Yeah,
how,
but that's the thing is like when you have those
give
meetups. it- oh, go ahead.
no, I was listening to you. You go.
No, I was gonna say is when you have those meetups, you do feel normal. Like in that those short moments, you do feel normal. But once you get out
It feels
into the
good to
world,
be able to let your defenses down. Yes. And it's so informative, and you can hear story, and we're sharing so much of our stories, because when we're out here, I know I feel a lot of times I'm, you're shelled. But when I'm amongst other sufferers, I think that's the freest I ever really feel when I'm amongst, and like even talking to you now, Jermaine, I'm talking about the heart of me, because there's not a time that I'm never not thinking of what my body may or may not be giving off.
right?
But I can't have these discussions on the regular with my family. I found
Mm,
over the years, I have to kind of spoon feed them my reality. So if I'm having a hard day with dealing with the TMAU, I said this before in a discussion with another member, another sufferer before, that sometimes I have to dress it up with other situations to kind of be heard. And when I say things about it, I'll just say it and leave it there. I'm not looking for a response from them, and I'm not looking for them to give me validation because they can't. They
Mm,
can't because they don't walk through the experience. It's too heavy of an experience for them. Unless you go through this, you don't know the heights and the depths that we go through and we experience with it. They can empathize with us to a certain degree, but unless you walk this walk, you don't understand. So
right.
I've come to the conclusion that I make peace with that. So when it comes, and a lot of times now, I don't have to look to my regular family. That's the wonderful thing about, being in the midst of other sufferers. When I'm having a bad day, I can call somebody. We have an outlet. We have all these different forums. There's support groups for a reason, where we can lay those burdens at the place of our forums. Where our families, we can't lay them there. That's what our forums are for. We can lay them there and know that we have understanding ears that understand what we're doing, what we're going through, and are there to give us that support, emotional, or an encouraging word, a hug, or whatever we need, that way. I like to think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But at the same time, it is very not concerning, annoying, very annoying at the fact that, with your immediate family, you can't really connect with them the way you want to. I feel like
Mhm.
with my condition, or at least with my condition, I felt like I never have I can never connect with them the way I want to. I can never, really have I feel completely like distant to them, and that bothers me
Yeah.
because I shouldn't be distant to my immediate family. Do you feel the
Let
same
me
way
ask you a
or
question.
differently?
Let me ask you a question. Because when you do enough of these interviews, and if anything, I think it gives you a chance to be vocal, because you're showing activism in your own little way with your form, with what you do here, which I wanted to congratulate you. I love what you do, Jermaine. I love what you do. I watch ever since I've come into the notion of come into finding your videos. Your generation, you guys are techies. I'm not a techie person like that. And just what you guys do with the internet now, it's just a whole new way of the the communication and everything. Technology is beautiful. I love what you guys do. Just fire that I feel like the cause needs. And every so many years, you get a new generation of sufferers. Unfortunately, that have to come into the forum this way, but you guys bring new fire that's much needed. But my question to you, how do you feel when you do the interviews? First of all, you're asking the questions, and at the same time, like you say, where you have to hold so much back, but in this forum, you have the openness to be free and to express yourself. Don't you find that therapeutic and that it helps you in a lot of ends?
Do I find it therapeutic? I do find
Yeah.
it therapeutic to read comments and see other people who go through the same thing. I do feel like I'm not the only one who's dealing with it. So you do, if I didn't have it, I'll be more stressed. I would have more anxiety. I'll feel more alone, and that would give me more negative emotions. So, yeah, communicating with people who are going through the same thing or something similar, yeah, it does make me feel a little bit better, but it doesn't like
A little bit.
completely erase the amount of anxiety or
No.
obsessive thoughts I have and stuff like that, depression I might have. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can definitely say it does make me feel a little bit better. Yes. But going back to you,
This is
since
not.
this is an interview, um,
I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to ask you just a little bit more about your meetups within New York. I wanted to ask you, um, so I
Attend
would
one now.
assume.
Only got to attend one. Only got to attend one of the meetups in New York. But hey, at least I can say I was able in the heyday. I got to make one of the good old meetups, the New York meetups.
Oh, you did what
Yes,
in one?
because this is back in today.
Well, I wanted to ask you, since you like, I'm assuming you probably like since you were conversing with a lot of people, some of them were probably telling that you things that they've tried or things that they recommend within that time period in 2001. Did you now have like a direction to go to, a direction that you felt like you can go to lower your symptoms or lower the condition, or
We've had so many of those back and forths. Back during around 2005, 2006 was when we had our MSN board. That's when we were kind of really jumping. Everybody was really getting into the computer end. That was probably the birthing with Maria and with the Mevo. As a matter of fact, she was talking about it. She hadn't formed and turned it into the foundation that it is now, but the baby steps and the formations of that, I like to think, formulated from our MSN board days and the forums. And we were always going back when we were really active, a lot of us who were active during that time with the forums. So yeah, you know, you deal with where you had some of the companies who may have infiltrated the groups and would prey on our desperation,
oh,
offering products to go in. I remember, what was one big one back in the day? There was one called Champix, crap.
hmm.
Dr. Body Mist or something, total crap, you know. And so we've been all through that whole farver. And just recently on the Mevo, there was this one big craze of this one supplement, DMB or something, which
DMB.
ended up being a total wash. Oh my goodness. So
Hmm.
yeah, we've all been through that
Yeah.
now.
I didn't even think there were like too many. I didn't even think there were like too many companies that would possibly find these like obscure groups and try to sell products. So that's very interesting that you're telling me this.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but I did want to say, so I know since you have kids and you had to go to graduation and you were talking about like families and stuff. I read something on a post on the Mevo post where this guy was talking about how he was getting very anxious to go to his daughter's graduation. So I want to ask you a question about like going to events for your family or for your children. I would assume like doing those things also had like you had bad experiences with that, or can you
Oh,
share some experience?
um, I can share one. Um, my oldest daughter, it was her high school. No, was it Takia's? I'm sorry, my youngest daughter's graduation from high school. Actually, they know me here in the city, so trust me. I have a reputation that your reputation precedes you. So there's nowhere I don't go here in the city of Milwaukee, and they don't know who I am, or if they don't know me personally, they've heard of me. They don't know me a lot of people don't know me. They just see me, but they've heard of me. I'm known.
Right.
Um, we were at the graduation, and I don't know if I can't remember if I was on my cycle at that time, but I remember there were a lot of the comments and everything coming back and forth. You know, sometimes a lot of times we have to grin and bear a lot of those situations. You know, you're going to go in spite of. I wasn't going to miss my daughter's graduation. I remember they had did the exit walkout after they walked across the stage and everything, and you know how the families are all gathering outside of the school building. We were sitting
Right.
around talking, and there was a group of young boys who were standing there, and they were taunting, making comments towards me, and I've had habits in the past where I have gotten to verbal confrontations, or I'll argue and spar with. You catch me at the
Mm.
wrong time, I catch some mouth back. And the little boy said something to me, and I snapped at him. Now, mind you, everybody that's standing around, all the people that are, they're gawking right along with them. They hear the comments they were making. It wasn't anything that they said, but the second I responded, that's when everybody stopped dead in their tracks. Like, what happened? What happened?
Right.
So what I remember what the young boys did, he tried to turn around and turn it around and make it like, oh my God, ma'am, why are you reacting? You know, I didn't say anything and this and that. And I just remember I cut it short because then by that time my daughter looked and she got angry with me. We've had a lot of instances where that kind of would happen, where they didn't see what I was reacting to. They were looking at me and the way I reacted. and then they started attacking. Then we would start sparring with each other.
Yeah. That
I
sounds
cut myself, and I remember I wanted to cry so bad. I wanted to cry so bad because I'm like, he hurt me so bad, and then to react the way he did, and then everybody's looking at me like, is she's gonna go
like
off?
you're
Is she gonna be
crazy.
some? And I had to hold my peace. But I remember that night I went home, I cried so bad. I cried so bad.
Mm.
It was one of those times where I felt like sometimes you almost had to muffle yourself in a way,
Mm.
dealing with the condition. But there have been countless instances like that where sometimes, if you catch me at the wrong time, if I'm out here minding my business, that's, when people try to come and just outward bully you and things like that. No, 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 we don't do that. But I've learned over the years too, you have to learn to choose your battles wisely. Because sometimes people do things and say things just to try to get a rise, and it's not worth it. It really isn't sometimes at the end of the day.
There's so much, there's something I wanted to say about that, but I do want to read some of the comments or questions that are on the chat.
Oh, what
And
comments come? What are they
one
asking?
one of the questions from Harden54, she asked, can she talk about what she does now to reduce her symptoms?
I don't know if any of you guys are on the Facebook Meebo page. If you are, I know some of you guys may have known that I put live feeds on. Jermaine, I want to also thank you for the video that you posted where you talked about some of the products that you use, especially when you talked about the charcoal.
Oh,
The activated charcoal, because I went back to using that recently, and it was because I saw your post. So thank you.
oh,
Activated charcoal was one that I end up coming back to. One that I use on a regular, which I put a post up about, guys, is the Zetolite. I use the Zetolite tablets. So you can go to zeohealth.com. They have the distraxin tablets and they
Zeal
have the
like
Zetolite.
Deal?
Zeolite. Zetolite.
Zeal.
Now, I use the brands from zeohealth.com. zeohealth.com. These are ones that I use, and I used them in conjunction this last time with the activated charcoal. Real quick, I find that my even though I have pretty much control over the symptoms now, I still have those ends. Trust me, if I eat the wrong thing, I will be all over the place. But just recently, not too long ago, I wind up getting sick. I got a respiratory infection.
Wow.
Whew. There's always a catch-22 with this condition. I'm telling you, it can be a beast. I find that when I get sick, it's happened to me in the past. The variation that the odor can take with me, when I get sick, I can smell like a dead corpse, like literally a walking dead corpse.
Wow.
And yes, you think smelling like shit or smelling like fish is the worst? Oh no, try smelling like a corpse. So there are different variations that this odor can take with me. I can speak for my end. And that happened when I end up getting this respiratory infection about a month ago. So I remember I was at my wit's end or whatever. I had to go to the doctor. I had to get a course of antibiotics. I had to change one of the antibiotics because one of them was making me sick to my stomach. So he switched me to another end. And usually before, like in the past, he would give me Cipro, but he didn't give me the ciproxyl this time. He gave me some Citroformin or some other ones. They were a weaker brand. Now, I found that as I was taking the antibiotics, it was lowering the odor, but it wasn't taking the edge off where I could kind of get that corpse odor off of me.
Right.
So I remembered like the week prior, I'd watched your video where you talked about the activated charcoal. I did a Zumba class one night and it started to build. I could smell it and I could see people kind of like, whoa, but I could smell it. I could smell that end. And I'll
Wow.
tell you, I continued taking the antibiotics. I was almost finished with my course of antibiotics. But when I went home that night, I said, okay, let me try. I know I got some of my Zetolites. Let me try something. I took my Zetolite and I took the charcoal together. Jermaine, when I tell you that cleared me out, Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I was good. That was a wonderful power punch because the Zetolite, I use that. I've been using that for years. If there's any product that I can say that I use that helps me as far as my TMAU, it's the Zetolite. That's why I take them. And now I've taken many supplements over the years, but one supplement that I take that I know surefire helps me to a degree, it's the Zetolite. But that really helped take that edge off.
Is
Where that,
this
because
the
if
product
I
that you're talking about?
yes, the Zito light. I knew that if I didn't there you go, that if I didn't get a hold of it, I wasn't going to be able to get that odor away. Because it's like it's like if it latches on to you in any way, if it's got one part of your body to feed on, it'll grow. It'll grow. So when that corpse-like smell was coming on me, and I remember I was sitting up that night. I'm like, you getting out of here. We're gonna fight tooth and nail. I knew that if I couldn't catch a hold of it in time, I wasn't gonna be able to get rid of it, Jermaine. I was gonna be stuck with it. So I had to really fight. But thanks to that course and with the antibiotics, I was able to get my levels back down. So
Mm,
I credited that, and I did a post on the Meebo about that, and I was, just recommending it maybe, to the members. It doesn't help you. I mean, it doesn't hurt to, something that may or may not work. I'm not saying it's a surefire, thing that's going to help everybody, but you never
right.
know. I know it worked for me, and so it's a suggestion, and I threw it out there. Another supplement that I want to talk that I use the hydrochloric acid tablets. I use a brand from this is Solaray. It's the hydrochloric acid with pepsin. Now, with me, remember when I told you about like during my pregnancies, how I went through the severe nausea and having to be, hospitalized and everything. I
Right.
still experience that. I suffer from low stomach acidity, and it can hit me at the drop of a dime, and acid reflux as well. So I find now my doctor prescribes me promethazine tablets for my nausea too. So in conjunction with my promethazine tablets, when I go through my spells of nausea, I take these on a regular. These are my lifelines. They're my godsends. They keep my stomach acid on point, because if it gets off kilter, that can affect and make my raise my levels as well. So I try to keep that intact. That's something that I use on a regular. And the biggest thing that I do, and this is for the ladies, because my TMAU, I always talk about how it affects me mainly through my groin area. Now, the lady, if you've been on Amiibo, you've seen me do the live feeds about the coconut capsules. I make my
Hmm.
homemade coconut capsules. I freeze and store them, and I insert those vaginally. They knock out my vaginal odor. That's how I control my vaginal odor. I don't go a day without my coconut capsules. My coconut capsules are my godsend. I have people who don't even deal with TMAU who use coconut capsules and love them. I
Hmm.
find that they're very effective as far as combating the vaginal end.
I did want to ask you this. Since you were
Mhm.
talking about how you use hydrochloric acid, do you feel
Yes.
like with this, because it's pretty much like I don't know if it's technically a digestive enzyme, but it makes it a lot easier to digest food because it
Yes.
increases the acidity to
It's
your
like
stomach.
my stomach will render itself dead, where my stomach won't move or do anything. And that's where, with me, that's where the nausea sets in. So I have to have these. They wake my stomach back up, and they help to build my stomach acidity back to where it needs to be.
So do you feel like now with the Solarate or with the hydrochloric acid is a lot easier, or at least the symptoms or the odors lessened? Because I was having a conversation with a person that was talking to me about like hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, and also what was another one? Vitamin C. He recommended
Okay.
that we should use a lot of these things because when we have so much digestive enzymes or so much hydrochloric acid within our stomach, it's going to be even a lot easier to break down the food. And once the food is
I
properly
agree.
broken
I
down,
agree
it's not going
100%.
to make us smell as much. So
I
I was
agree 100%. I don't know if it helps so much with us. And it depends on what we eat. So our diet plays a big part.
right.
Plays a big part. But I agree with what he says, because I eat tons of oranges.
Oh, you
Oranges are my best friend. Oh
Hmm.
yeah. Oranges and apples are my best friend. Honey Crisp to be exact. I think Honey Crisp apples are a godsend, or sent from heaven above. But oh yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. That I agree with.
I also wanted to ask you this. Have you ever tested yourself for TMAU?
Now, I did my testing back in 2006 with Dr. DeBow at the time, who was my primary physician. He's passed on, God rest his soul. At that time, I did my testing through Dr. Cashman in San Diego. I did mine through the urine, which I came back negative, which I always believed was a false negative. Because with a lot of the evidence that we're getting now, it's like we're finding out that those urine tests that we've done over in the past really weren't as effective.
Right.
That it seems like doing the genetic testing seems to be more effective, more efficient, which is something that I'm looking to do in the future.
Mm. I wonder because that's the thing because I hear so many different stories as to what would be the most effective. And I think I've heard from Maria that what she heard from a doctor for some doctor or whatever that urine test is the
Mhm.
most effective. But then I hear other sources that say, yeah, genetic testing is better,
Um,
you know. So,
Genetic testing. I agree with that too, because I've always believed that was a false negative. There is no way you can't tell me that I don't have something to be exhibiting the symptoms to the degree that I was exhibiting that I can exhibit.
hmm. And I also wanted to ask you this. I wanted to continue your life journey from
Okay.
2001 to I guess what was your life? Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you this. So I wanted to ask you since you were talking about this one time where you were like within your graduation or within your daughter's graduation, you were about to get in a fight with this little kid. Um, like, were there many times in your life when you were at work or when you were trying to pursue a nursing assistant, I don't know if there's like some type of education or schooling, like you just got into it with somebody or you just walked off a job. Have you ever been discriminated of a job? Like, what were your experiences just working in general? And how did people treat
Jermaine, I've had before I had my hysterectomy. Let's fast forward a little bit before I had the hysterectomy, because I had the hysterectomy back May 12th. I'm sorry, 2012. We're 2019, so it's been 7 years now. So we figure maybe a year or two before that. I was trying to work 3 jobs at the time. Now, before I had the hysterectomy, because remember seeing hysterectomy and I'm thinking that's drastic. I'm not thinking about doing anything like that. But I'm going through through those formative years before actually having the hysterectomy as the final step. Like I said, I'd been taking birth control and things like that. My purpose for taking the birth control was to control
odor?
my cycle. And like I said, I got to the point where I was taking 4 at a time at one time. That's dangerous. That's too
Hmm.
much. And not to mention the fact that I was a heavy smoker at that time, too. So it's like
Hmm.
I said, it was only about the grace of God that I'm sitting here and that I'm okay. I was really pushing the bullet at that time, but desperate measures, you get desperate, you do desperate things. But with all that being said, before I looked to have the hysterectomy, as a first step, I did an endometrial ablation, which is the first step to the hysterectomy, where they sewed the lining of the uterus.
Hmm.
And when I did that, that held up pretty good for a year. So during this time, I was working 2. Then I tried to pick up 3 jobs. I wanted to work 3 jobs, and then it let up. It let up. So that means I started to bleed. Now, with the endometrial ablation, you can either stop having periods altogether or you can have a very light flow. What wound up happening with me is that after a year's time, I started to come back into having cycles and it was a light flow. But it didn't matter how light the flow was, the fact that I would start bleeding. If any blood came from my body, it would smell. It was just, and let's just say when it came through, it was 10 times worse than it was before in the past. It was the worst of the worst of the worst. I was let
Hmm.
go of almost all 3 of those jobs. No, 2 of the jobs. I'm sorry. I ended up losing 2 of those jobs because of the situation and stress and everything that was associated with it.
Right.
Um, that was a very hard time because I ended up getting evicted, and that was a eviction. We were going through a really hard time during that period before I end up making the decision to have the hysterectomy. And with having the hysterectomy, because I remember reading a lot of the stories in the past, even when I first found out about TMAU, about women who had hysterectomies thinking that that was going to take the odor away, and how it came back. How women were having their sweat glands, or people in general were having their sweat glands removed only to have the odor still return.
Right.
So that worked in my favor because before I had the hysterectomy, at least I went into it knowing full well what I was dealing with. So in my mindset, I knew, okay, I'm going to have this hysterectomy. This odor will come back, but at least I'll have a leg up because I won't have to deal with having an issue of having a menstruation. So
Mm.
I don't know, some of you guys are spiritual people, but I am. When I prayed about it and I talked to God about it, my prayer was, God, I can't take this anymore. How did I say it to him? I said, I can no longer bear this cross. I can bear this, but I can't bear it having an issue of blood. You have to remove that cup from me. I'll carry everything else, but you have to remove the issue of blood. Meaning, sure, I'm going to deal with this condition until there's a cure. I'm going to have to deal with it. But what I can't deal with is having this condition and have a cycle. Henceforth, that's where I am now.
Yeah. So you do.
So trust me, I I can go out here, I can eat some stuff, I can blow the whole house off the roof. I could trust me, I can do things that can there's certain, or if it decided to just shoot up and go bananas, it probably could, but I don't have the element of having to bleed anymore. So that gives me a leg up.
Mm-hmm. It
And
gives you some
it's worked
relief.
in my favor. The biggest thing is also following the diet. I can't stress that enough. That for me, that was one step, but staying close to the diet as well. There's just certain foods that I just can't eat. I love mac and cheese. I love lasagna. I eat
Mm.
those things. I'm going to be, excuse me, I'm going to be screwed.
Right.
I mean, so if I do choose to eat them, I have to plan how I'm going to eat them and plan what my exit plan is going to be, especially if I know I have to be at work a few days later.
Yeah.
So there's ways around it, ways
I
around
did
it.
want to ask you, well, I did want to read some questions from the chat. Uh,
Oh, okay.
One question from Caramel Gazelle says, "What does she eat to control it?"
One of my big things, I was stressing with the apples and the oranges. Fruits and vegetables are really big with me. My oranges, what I find with the oranges, I find that the oranges are helpful with me because they help to neutralize my body.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't do more than one or two a day because then the citric acid, can kind of turn against me. But I at least try to get one or two oranges a day. That vitamin C, baby, it works. And I
Mm.
do a lot of the Honeycrisp apples. I try to, so I eat clean more. Now, I still give myself times, where here, if I want to eat a little something, I kind of try to plan those eats around. But for the most part, a lot of fruits and veggies. I try to eat clean as possible, especially when I know I have to be out and around people. If I want to eat something a little more heavier, I kind of save and reserve that when I'm alone by myself. So if my body's doing whatever it's going to do, hey, I'm by myself and it is what it is. I kind of try to plan that around. Just try to eat within reason
So
and
you
portion control.
so the common foods is crisp apple sugar, something crisp apples and oranges. Like, what would you say are like the top 5 common foods you eat within the month or something like that?
Oh my God. My big ones, I keep chicken.
Mm.
My chicken breast. Potatoes and rice. I do here and there, but mainly my chicken. I do, like I said, I do my salads. Um, Apples and oranges are a must. I do bagels. I do plain. I do
Oh, you
plain
eat bread.
bagels. So I might put it like a small amount of on. Yes, bagels. Don't judge. Yes, I do have because too, I have to keep some weight on me too
Right.
because so I'm not one of these who I'm I strictly do fruits and vegetables and I can't do anything else. No, I did the vegan years ago and before I had any hysterectomy or anything like that, and I saw the benefit where it was lessening my odors, but my weight dropped off way
Right.
too much. And for me, I have to have a protein count up in there. I have to have a balance. So yes, honey, I do breads and carbs. I just try to keep them portioned now, especially with me getting older. It's harder for your body to metabolize those some of those foods here and there. But I still potatoes, rice, bagels. Um, I do grits.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't do eggs. Don't
Right.
bother eggs. Um,
You eat
pancakes.
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 That's interesting.
Here and there, not that often, but here and there, I like pancakes. But as far as my top five foods, so it would be have to be my chicken. I do my spinach leaves, my tomatoes, my cucumbers, my apples, and my oranges. If you were asking me the foods that I just have to have and I couldn't live without, those would have to be my staple.
Okay. Well, now we know.
I'm gonna keep it real. Those would have to be my staples. There's not a day that I don't go without getting. I have to have something. The way I feel now, the way I eat, I have to have something fresh
Yeah.
daily. I go crazy if I couldn't have a salad or have me a piece of fresh fruit or something.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I tend to. Um, I tend to used to eat apples and oranges, but now I'm more just try to do vegetables and stuff like that. But
Do you juice?
do I juice?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I did juice, but then I started to realize I had a conversation with some people, and he mentioned, I mentioned that I did juicing, and he said, wouldn't it just be better just to eat it plain because the fiber would be good for the bacteria within your gut? And when I heard that, made me think about stop juicing. So now I'm
No, I
transitioning back
like my
into just
juice.
eating it, just plain vegetables and make a salad with it, as opposed to just juicing you know, just juicing whatever. But another question from Kara Gazelle asks you, what did her gynecologist say?
The doctors were telling me every time I would go, I would always go with the complaints of having a fishy odor. They would test me, and they weren't finding anything majority of the time because what was happening a lot of times I was washing so much or dushing so much. I stopped dushing after so many years. I remember the first was if I could, you're washing and dushing and everything. So a lot of times when I would get infections or BV, it was because I was washing myself into them
Mm,
because I was over washing my areas when I would get the BV because I was doing so much to try to cleanse myself that I was actually creating the
more
environment
problem.
for me to have BV when I did. But otherwise, over the years, my course of treatment was always metronidazole for fish odor. That was all that they were doing for me. The first female doctor that listened to me when it came to me having my hysterectomy was Dr. Carla Kelly, the doctor who performed my hysterectomy. When I told her about my TMAU, she was the one who recommended that we do the endometrial ablation, which I did first. And then when I decided to take the second step and have the hysterectomy, she was the one who performed it for me. And
Mm,
she knew the reason why I was happening. Because let me go back to that point too, before I had the hysterectomy. Because what also happened too, after the ablation let up, I was the flow would come and it was very light. I mean, to the point where I was literally have to have a panty shield. But it wasn't the fact that of the flow, but just the magnitude of the odor that it created was
Right.
just beyond me, to where I couldn't even handle it. I was just freaking and going crazy
Let
on
me
that
I don't
end.
think I
And
even
then,
asked you this before. So when you have your period, you can smell this odor.
oh, it got to the point. Oh, absolutely. It got to the point where I could smell it. I could
Mhm,
smell it. It felt like a cloud surrounding me. And
mhm.
then on top of that, endometriosis ended up setting in on me. So then I started getting intense pain along with the flow. So by that time, once that set in, I said, oh no, it was time for that to, we had to call a wrap on that.
Mhm.
Yes, my cycles got to the point I smelled horrible. I mean, if you were to, a lot of the comments that I've always gotten were she's, she smells, she don't wash her behind, and just some
Right.
of the worst comments, always related to my groin, because that's the way my TMA admitted. You would think I'm walking around, there's a fish smell coming from me. You're assuming that I didn't wash. I've shared this a lot in other forums. One of the worst comments I've ever heard, and it's still just stuck in my mind like glue. I remember I was in my cycle one day, and I was in the store shopping, and there were two men passing me in the aisle, and I'll never forget. The fella, he looked at the guy that he was with, and they were walking past me, and he said, it doesn't make any sense that every time you see, when this woman is on her period. This woman walks past and she's on her period. I've
Wow.
never in my life smelled a woman smell like that before. And I just remember the stain, the imprint that left in my head. Even just thinking about it and saying it now, it still sends chills up my spine just to think
Yeah.
about that.
That would it sounds like I don't know, that would hurt the
Yeah.
time that happened, and even later on, just thinking about it would still bother you, you know?
It
Even though
always,
that wasn't said to me, that just bothers me, you know?
mhm,
Probably makes me
yeah,
mad. But
makes you harder. But even um, I guess there's no rhyme to the reason. I just I'm happy where I am now, because at least all that hard work and everything that I've gone through I just feel like it wasn't in vain. I'm in a better place where I can manage. I can have a sense of normalcy that I haven't had in years. And I'm grateful for that. So if there's any little thing or any way that I can, is something that may help somebody, then I'm always screaming praises when it comes to the coconut capsules. They are a godsend to me. So that's why, you share that, especially when that they can help somebody else. Hey, I know what they do for me. Like I said, I don't leave home without my capsules. My number one thing that helps control my odor, the way my odor controls me, is the use of the coconut capsules. For the ladies, any ladies who may be listening on, the way I do it, I get the coconut here. I got some that I have in my little thing here. I'll show you what they look like. So they're like little capsules here. I don't know if you guys, can you see them? It's like a little
yeah.
capsule here. You can get the clear capsules. You can order them from Amazon. Like I get the packs, like 1,000 come in a pack for like $15. You can go to Walmart or anywhere and get coconut oil. Get your little sifter that you can take them and fill them. Because I filled them liquefied, and I put them in a little capsules. And I use my little little toothbrush case I got from Walmart. I put them in the freezer and let them freeze. So like in the morning when I wake up, I'll do an initial insertion of about 9 or 10. And then as I go through my day, as needed, maybe every 3, 4 hours if needed. Well, in the summertime months, especially since I sweat a little bit more, we tend to sweat a little bit more, I'll use maybe a few more.
Mhm.
I'll do maybe insertions of maybe 2, maybe 3 capsules every 3 to 4 hours as needed. So on a regular days basis, I may go through maybe, well, usually between 10 or 15. But I find when I'm eating well too, when I'm really sticking to the diet and I'm really eating clean, I don't have to do that much of an insertion. Especially after I did that last detox. Remember I told you where I did the charcoal and the Zeto
Oh,
light.
yeah.
detox. They cleaned me out so good. Oh my gosh. I didn't even have to do another researching of my coconut capsule. So I was like, woo. So we were really on to something. But yeah, that's what I use. So this is my big trusted that I sing their praises. You will not stop me from singing the praise of the coconut capsules for the vaginal area. For any of the ladies who are listening.
That actually reminds me. Let's say that somebody wants to have further instructions on how to use these coconut capsules. Is it
Mhm.
okay that I share your email?
Sure, sure.
Okay. And while I am sharing your email,
And you guys hit me up on Facebook too, because I am on Facebook too. So if you guys have Messenger, because I'm not so quick with
Mhm.
checking the emails, hit me on Messenger, Letitia Williams. I'll be quicker to hit you guys through Messenger if you want to hit me that way, or on Facebook.
Yeah. And what else was gonna say? So you say that you're in a, I wanted to ask you about your job, because you say that you feel that you're in a better place, but I feel like nursing assistants, you have to be in close contact with another person. Is that
Oh,
always a problem? Is that a problem with you when you have to do your
it's
job?
so much better now, so much easier now that I have my symptoms under control versus back before having the procedure done. You know, when I was still having cycles and everything, it was horrible. It was just really hard. It was really tough. Um, as far as me, because I know there was sometimes my residents loved me so much or whatever that they were okay, but I would, you know, my thing would play in my mind, and even still now, even though I'm in a better place symptom wise, I still deal with things. You don't just come from anything like this and you're unscathed.
Right,
It's like I'm thrown into this sense of where people are in your space and stuff, and I'm a social awkward because I'm very introverted. So I'm still learning to adjust
right,
and get used to a sense of normalcy and learning to connect with people. And this has been 5 years in, and I'm still trying to find my way. So and it's a daily process. Some days I do better than others. Like now, I take dance classes. I like stepping. I don't know if you know about stepping and line dancing and stuff. And
hmm,
um, for me, it's a way to push myself out of my comfort zone, because my comfort zone tells me to mesh in and just hoover and hide myself. But by pushing myself out there, I push myself out to make myself be social and to connect with people to some level. Like I said, some days are better than others. But it's all good. I wouldn't trade it for the world. For the first time in years, I cry even when I think about it. The fact that I can wear cologne. I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be able to even put anything scented on my body. So now my kids and my families, it seems unreal to me. They come up to me and they tell me, Mom, you smell good. And my mind is, I don't tell them, but my mind still can almost wrap around that.
mm,
When you've gone through so many years and you hear so much negativity. So to hear them say, Mama, you smell so good, and what cologne are you wearing? And just to hear the words, you smell good, it still plays a trip with my mind.
right.
God
You
is
know,
good. My God is good. Oh, my God is good. So when I'm on here, Jermaine, it's a testimony. And for all of us that's out here, that's struggling, don't give up. You keep going. It would take me 20 years of my life to get to where I am now. But, it's just because you have to have hope for something to never give up. And
right.
There are lots of us out here who are, and just in small ways, that are finding things that are working for us. And if it can happen for me, it can happen. It's happening for more of us, more of us. And I know it seems like such a long wait. When is our day going to come? I think a lot of the work that Maria and Dr. Hazen, the supplement that
That's
which
supposed to come out.
that's supposed to come out. They said we might be looking at a date of 2022, possibly 2021, 2022. And I know it seems like such a long wait, but you know what? I feel in my heart and soul it's worth it. It's not one of these push in the pan, miracle pills that we've always thought over the years that we would have that just would give us the miracle relief that we wanted. It's something that I feel that's worth the wait, that's going to benefit us in more ways than we can even imagine. But in the
Yeah,
meantime, you just keep going. You just can't give up. You just can't. You just can't.
yeah. What you said reminds me of a conversation I had with a person who was saying that even if we do get this cured or we get it treated, we'll still need tons of therapy just to deal with all the things that we
Absolutely.
we went through. So,
Absolutely.
you know,
You don't come through this unscathed. I can't come through this, oh, I'm in a better place and everything is all good and great. I still have years of scars that I still have to, that's a daily walk. That's a daily walk. I still have to deal with those battles in my head where I I think dealing with it so much, sometimes I can become my own worst enemy sometimes, where
hmm
I've been judged so heavily to where I start to judge my own self. You're not good enough, because one thing I know, since I couldn't, and I'll give my work as an example. Since I couldn't be normal in that end, and I couldn't control what was going on with my body, my work, that's why my work has to be so together. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be together. Because in a sense, it's like I'm trying to overcompensate for what
right.
I can't control there. So in that way, I know there's a sense of where I'm self-sabotaging myself because I'm judging myself.
hmm
I'm judging myself because I'm holding myself beholden to other people's beliefs of me. And that's just a daily struggle, something that I'll always work with. Like I said, some days are better than others. Management.
Well, well, we're winding down here, so I do want to say to anybody that's in the chat, uh, if you have any final questions to ask Letitia, right now is the time to do it. And I do want to ask you, Letitia, like, let's say there's somebody who can identify with everything you are talking about or relates to everything you're talking about. Is there any insight or final words you would like to say to that person?
Oh my goodness. And it's use the forms. We have the form. The forms that we have like this are just very beneficial. Like I said, I was a deer in the headlights before I came into the knowing of finding the support groups. They're a lifeline. No, the last thing you need to know, to feel is that you're out here alone. So if you're a part of it, of the support groups, the forms, utilize them. They're lifelines. We have them for a reason. You have an opportunity to be able to meet up with somebody that you meet with from the support groups. Take advantage of it. You know, get together. I actually found a lady here. There are actually 3 or 4 ladies, come to find out, in the city here that I live in that suffer from the disease. I got to meet with one of the ladies a couple months ago. I won't say her name, but we keep in contact. But the 2 of the other ladies were on Facebook. I didn't really get much response from them, but one of them I was able to meet. And I've met some wonderful folks over the years that I keep in contact with regularly, a lot through Facebook and everything. So I widely encourage it, and keep ourselves informed, and we do the best that we can. with supplements and supplementation. And the biggest thing I know was the diet,
Mm-hmm.
just some foods that I know I can't have, you know, try to keep everything in moderation. But I'm not trying to be anybody's preacher or priest about anything. So, but if I could say anything, a word of encouragement to anybody, I'd like to try to do that because we need it. We need it. We can all use that.
Okay. And now let me just read just a couple of questions that are actually from the chat. One of them is Hard from Harden 54, and she asks you, "What fragrances do you use? Do you use scented soap?"
Oh my gosh. As far as my fragrances, my number one fragrance is vanilla. I'm gonna tell you something. Before I actually had the hysterectomy, there was the little body spray we used to have at the hair store. It was called Vanilla Spice. Vanilla was the first scent that I found that I could actually hide behind, if that makes any sense,
Mm-hmm.
where I could mask my odor for a short period of time. And so coming years later to the point where now where I can actually wear fragrance, vanilla is one of my favorite scents that I might wear. And I also like Egyptian musk. I like Egyptian musk because it's magical and it kind of works with your body chemistry. I have
Mm-hmm.
to be very careful now with that playing the I'm finding the loom too with fragrances because every fragrance doesn't work in your favor. So I
Right.
have to ride that line very fine and trust. I have to keep my diet at a certain point to be able to wear fragrances. Because trust me, if I'm eating off and then I try to wear something nice, that can turn tragic very quickly. So that's enough incentive too to kind of try to stay on a straight and narrow path as far as eating and everything.
Mm.
Are there a lot of women on your chat?
Is there a lot of women? I assume so. I know Liz Sunshine
Okay.
is, True Doll is. But it's funny. I look into my back of my channel, and there's like statistics on my channel, and apparently 74% of the people who watch my stuff are women. So
Okay.
yeah, I just think the majority are women. Um,
Okay.
but another thing is from what was another thing? Oh yeah, another question from Caramel Gazelle, and she asks, oh well let me just do this question. Is did she control is your odor controlled now? Basically what she's saying.
Yes. For the most part, pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay.
I ate off a little bit for the holiday, but
Yeah.
I usually try to give myself a little time to be able to recover. So I try to plan to eat smart. When I want to eat off or eat a little something that I know that it's going to take a little while for me to work through my system, I usually try to work that in. Usually where I can have a few days off and where I can have a little time to give myself a little time to detox.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely do that too. I have like cheat days, and I have to have like
Mhm.
3 days of just extra days before I go back to work or go back into public. Um, but another question I got from Annalise Keith, and she asked you, have you tried betaine hydrochloric plus pepsin? This supplement is very good for low st Oh, yeah, yeah. She already mentioned that within the video that she uses hydrochloric
Yeah,
and
I
pepsin
use
with
it
sodium.
regularly.
Let me see here. Oh, is she with someone? Caramel Gazelle asks you, are you with someone?
It's good. Thank you for opening that outlet. That kind of speaks to not at the moment. I was in a relationship, but I let that go. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not at that point. I'm still trying to find my way and figure me, and I just don't see where I'm not in a place where I can handle being in relation with anybody. So when it comes to dating, I kind of just want to take that little lightweight. Right now, I'm still trying to focus on getting me and working me, but I don't mind a little date here and there. But as far as if you don't mind me being kind of on the personal side, when I had the hiss too, for the ladies that are listening, I kind of wanted to know, like, am I okay? Can I still be intimate, from that end? So when I kind of came into being sexually active again, that was what my reasoning to see, like, am I going to be okay down there? And let's say The coconut capsules help me to be very okay. I don't get any complaints. So okay, I'm good on that end.
Well,
I
oh,
my odor outside of having the capsules, if I didn't have the capsules, even though I had the hist, I would still have a very pronounced fish odor. The odor would be very present. So taking the coconut capsules, they control the odor greatly. So I am almost practically odorless on most days down there. And like I said, depending on what my diet is too. Now, if I go and eat off more, I'm going to have to insert more. But for the most part, they control me down there. So for the most part, and I even asked one of my partners, what does it smell like down there? And he told me it smells like coconut.
hmm.
So if God ain't good, I don't know what to tell you. So yes. And
Well,
the other lady too from the forum too, let me say that too. There are other ladies from the Mebo forum too who have been using the coconut capsules, and all the ladies are saying that they're happy with the use of the coconut capsules. So ladies, if vaginal odor is something that is one of your concerns as far as your TMAU symptoms, give them a try and see how they work. You can hit me, message me, hit me. Jermaine's will give you my email, and I can, give you more on the coconut capsules if you guys need that. Just hit me up. Not a
another
problem.
thing, speaking of just like connecting with people,
Uh-huh.
Joy Love is trying to look for your Facebook account. What is your first name is Letitia, your last name is
Latisha, last name Williams, and you'll see under mine it says works at Spiritual Haven. That's me.
okay.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And another question from Annalise Key, but I think you already explained this. She asked you what is her safe diet?
What's my safe eat?
Yeah,
Let me say this, when I'm out, I'm always thinking to myself, I like to think of my diet as this. I'm eating clean 70, 80% of the time. My eat off is a 20, maybe 30 ratio of that. For the most part, I am eating clean. Like if I'm going out, when they have hors d'oeuvres and they have different foods, potlucks and stuff, I go for the fruits and the vegetables, the light stuff usually. I try to eat as light as possible. If I want to eat something I know is a little heavier, another thing I've learned to do, if let's say you go to somebody's cookout or something, and there's something that you want to eat there heavy, but you know it's going to make you reactive, get a to-go plate. Eat light while you're there, and I'll take that. Like, because we just did my daughter's baby shower, and she wanted soul food, so we had greens, we had yams, they had barbecue. I love barbecue. I can do a day of barbecue. If I do anything past that day, oh honey, I'm gonna be in trouble. Now we had mac and cheese and barbecue. That's a deadly combination for me because first of all, cheese, even a little too much of the cheese will do me under. My daughter's fiance's mother can make macaroni and cheese that make you want to slap your mama. She put 5 cheeses in hers, and I wanted to try that mac and cheese, but I knew we weren't going to eat it while we were there at the baby shower. So what I did is I put my to-go plate to the side, and I waited till after the baby shower when I went home to eat it. And because now remember, it had 5 different cheeses in it. So like that next day, because we had to go for breakfast, I was kind of moving. I wasn't so great that day. I think they might have caught a couple whiffs from me. But by that Monday, because I went back to eating clean, right back to eating my clean foods, my salads and my fruits and juicing and everything. I do my juices. That's important. I was pretty much level. It's like I gave myself that day to enjoy it. Then I let it go back to clean. So I'll have my little eat, but back to clean. Don't stay there and linger too much. I mean, don't eat the mac and cheese and then the barbecue day 1, day 2, day 3, because that's much more work that you got to work to get that stuff out your system. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So no. Because one thing I've noticed too, not to be so graphic, but even with I can judge my diet and when I'm doing good by my eliminations. When I'm
Right.
eating pretty clean, my eliminations can have little to almost no odor at all. Now, when my eliminations are, like when I had the barbecue and all that, and I could smell them and they smell regular, okay, I got to get back to eating clean. I think your
Mm,
elimination, how you eliminate and release the foods to let you know. I try to pay attention to that quite a bit.
mm, okay.
Right now,
And
honestly, with us, that's one of the biggest tools we have is our diet. It plays a big, major role. And even when you think a lot of foods that you eating ain't helping, they are. They are. Because trust me, you can go eat something that's way worse that's going to have you shot down from here to kingdom come. And that's not even mention alcohol and everything else in
yeah,
between. That's definitely shot. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's
I drink a
funny.
glass of Moscato, my breath will smell for 2, 3 days. That's why I don't even waste my time and bother with it. Mm.
With alcohol, you said alcohol?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because see, now since I have that's the thing about TMAU. It's that burger that you just want to, because it's like you get it under control in one area, it always finds another way to try to find and admit. And since I have my groin region together, now I have to focus on my breath. I have to really, because sometimes it's like it'll shoot through my breath. So I have to kind of fight that gamut. I always keep gum and mints with hand and constantly keep trying to eat clean. But even then, I still have those points where I know it's still I'm battling with it. We go back and forth. So
Have you
yeah.
ever considered using coconut oil and swishing it in your mouth? I know one of the
Now
interviewers I had,
I can
they
do it
said,
vaginally, but I can't do it orally. It upsets my stomach. Now, so if I'm gonna do it orally, I'm gonna eat the actual coconut and drink the water. But the oil I do vaginally.
mm,
And I love the water.
okay.
I keep it religiously.
Well,
That's I
I
love my
thank
coconut
you,
water. Yeah.
Letitia, for getting on
Mhm.
this platform and telling your story. And I also like
Mhm.
to thank the chat for coming out and asking questions for Letitia because it made a very interesting interview. Um, this is Friday night, TMAU PATM Body Odor interview number 20, and we are
This is
out.
oh, okay. We were cool.